Hey everybody, Eric Spicer here. We're looking at Dragon Age: The Veilguard with Dragon Age Stan, Meg Policcio.
Hello.
Okay, Meg, cards on the table. This is the second time we're having this conversation
It
be-
is.
because we had a nice chat about the Veilguard, and then I started getting some updates from EA about what I could and could not talk about, and it turned out that they just let's say this the nice way. They want to be very protective of the story and of spoilers so that people get to experience it for themselves. Um, and that puts me in a difficult position as somebody who played 7 hours of this game, and my job is to now talk about it because there's a lot of things I'm not allowed to talk about.
It's a
So
bit daft. It's a
we'll
bit daft.
we'll talk about the things I can talk about, but I think starting with the story is a good place to start because that's what clearly BioWare and EA think is the most important part of this game, and I think that the fan base probably agrees.
I definitely agree. Like, I could put up with the gameplay not being as good as I want it to be if the narrative is the same level or higher quality than what has come before.
Yeah, so I played most of Inquisition. I didn't finish it. I like it. It's just games are too long. They're too long, and they've always been too long. Apparently, even 10 years ago. So I played most of Game of the Year 2014, Dragon Age Inquisition. I never played Origins or 2. But from talking to people at the event and talking to you, I sort of have a sense of what those games were like. They're not what I thought. I imagined, and I think you corrected me on this before, but I imagined that the Dragon Age series sort of started CRPG and shifted into character action.
Yeah, no, so they've always been, you can button mash it.
Okay.
And then they added in, like, I don't know if it was there from the start because I just never used it, but obviously Inquisition had the tactical thing, and
Yes.
yeah.
No, really no tactics here.
Which I'm fine with, but I imagine some people won't be. I did use it a little bit, if you were trying to take on a dragon when you knew you were underleveled and like a second playthrough, there were certain like setups where you knew if I put this person here and this and this, you could kind of do it when you were underleveled. But other than that,
Okay.
I didn't really use the tactical stuff.
Gods, I guess.
Yeah, so he's like the elven trickster. He's kind of like the elven equivalent of Loki.
Right.
He's the Dreadwolf. And so
Right.
it was him who, or he he originally created the veil and separated the Fade from Thedas to trap the elven gods in there. But like he didn't realize when he did that all the magic would get trapped in there as well, and then elves lost their magic and became rather sad. So
Yes. So this very first mission, the beginning of the Veilguard, is the heroes going to stop Solus from, we're not exactly sure what, but it seems pretty bad.
so from what I've gathered, and I think this is right, he's trying to tear down the veil. He's trying to undo what he did because he wants to give elves magic back and kind of put the world back to how it was so that elves can regain their glory. But unfortunately, that means unleashing like demons and things like that. And so lots of people are going to die. And so naturally, like us as the heroes, we don't want that to happen.
Yes. So we interrupt this ritual, which inadvertently unleashes the elf gods, these two malevolent elf gods, into
I mean, you
reality.
would be though, wouldn't you? If you'd been trapped in the Fade for like years, you'd be kind of annoyed and wanting to wreak havoc.
Probably want to do some killing for fun. Yes, I can relate. I can empathize. Anyway, that is the setup for the Veilguard, and then what I played was 6-ish hours, all in Act 1, and linear, but not all of Act 1. So I played the first mission, I played the second one, and then I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, played another one, jumped ahead a little bit. All in, I think I played 5 different chunks of Act 1, and I was allowed to capture 2.5. So what I've got here is basically the first 2 missions, and then a little later we jump ahead and we meet one of the companions, Lucanus, and then a little bit of what I think is the end of Act 1, a mission from the end. So that's what we're talking about today. And like I said, having only played Inquisition, I was surprised at what the Veilguard is doing, and I think I don't want to speak out of turn, but I think Dragon Age fans might be a little surprised too, because this is a very, I think if you're being generous, you would say this is a very streamlined approach to Dragon Age, and if you didn't want to be generous, you might say it's a stripped down approach to Dragon Age.
I mean, we've had linear before, Dragon Age 2, and it didn't get away with it. People were unhappy with it. I do stand by that. I think it's better in hindsight with Inquisition and all that, but it's one of those things that I will suffer through if the storyline is really good enough.
You know? Yes, I think that is the sentiment. Like, okay, I'll accept that. So
but you said there were a couple of other pain points in this one, right?
Yes. Yeah. Let me get into that.
Button.
Oh God, I have a few. Yes, I have some gripes. But yes, to be clear, to rip the Band-Aid off, this is a fully linear, mission-based game. So there's no open world from Inquisition. There are optional quests. There are some side path stuff, particularly around the crossroads, which is kind of like the hub between. It's kind of like the fast travel zone, even though you do have a fast travel. You can just go anywhere you've been before, but narratively, the crossroads is like this spirit realm that has doors that connect different places.
Yeah, and most fans should know it from Inquisition, because Morrigan did show us a bit of the doors and all that.
Yeah, and that's a place that grows over time as you open more doors, and it changes a little bit too. It's got some puzzles, it's got some side quest kind of stuff. One of the I played 2 of these, what I believe are optional missions, but they're essentially playable. You're experiencing Solus's memories, so it's sort of exploring his history, like before Inquisition.
Oh, like yes, from when he was like an elven god, right?
Yes, so you're trying to understand who he was, but also what exactly his plan was that you interrupted.
I think that's one of the most interesting things you've told me, to be honest, because we don't see a lot of. We don't have all the information from what the world was like back then. It's it's myth and it's legend, and it was only really in Inquisition that you're kind of face to face with it, like, oh, it is all real and stuff. So I think, let's face it, fans would love like a prequel where you're back in the oldie days, but this is the closest we're going to get to for now, and that sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I like that from a narrative point of view. That was some of the more interesting stuff I played. The moment to moment of this game, I think, is very God of War. It's a lot of using abilities on cooldown and parrying. I think the main mechanic of this game is parry.
You just reminded me of that, and I suck at parrying so much.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely an action game. The only tactics option you really have is when you pull up your radio menu, you can basically swap targets and look around the battlefield while it's paused. And I'm not a fan of radio menus at all. And you can just use basically like shortcuts, like hotkeys, to do all of these actions. But yeah, you can also like pause the game, open this radio menu, and use that as an opportunity to be like, okay, where are the ranged guys that are shooting at me? Like, who are the biggest targets here, and get your bearings. But and also assign your companions, right? You can be like, okay, you attack this guy, you attack this guy, or you guys both focus the range guys together so I can focus on other stuff. But that's the extent of it. That's all you get. Is like, you go hit him, or you use this ability, and then you go back into the action. Which, to be honest, doesn't work for me, because the action is all about like the timing and being in the moment and the parries, and pausing the game to be like, you go over there now. It's just, it feels like two different games mashed together, or two like half ideas maybe.
I'm not convinced I'm gonna like the combat, because if there's a greater emphasis on like parrying and blocking and dodging or anything, I just suck at all of that. I like to stand there and get hit, and I like to hit things, and I just have a companion who unfortunately has to heal me while I do that.
Yeah, well, you know, the combat is not bad. Like, it is very flashy. I played a lot of the rogue, and I played a lot of the mage. And the rogue does like big jumps and flips, and can dash at enemies and close distance really easy, and has like these big multi-hit combos. And then the mage, depending on how you build it, has some like really devastating spells. Like, I did a whole like fire mage thing, and I was like calling down meteors and like slamming dudes into the ground with these big fireballs from the sky. And it all has a lot of weight, and it's very flashy. So like, the combat is not bad if you like that kind of, like, if you're into like God of War style dodge, parry abilities, fire off abilities, that kind of thing.
I think I'm gonna suck at it. I think I'm gonna be really terrible at it.
It was kind of hard. You have gear that you'll upgrade. You collect resources for typical RPG stuff. The skill tree is pretty massive, and you can take it in a lot of different directions. I didn't get to experiment a ton, but there's like, I think there's sort of like 6 specializations you can work towards. Is that right? No, I'm sorry. I think there's 3 for each class. There's 3 sort of ends to this. The skill tree is a big circle, and you can go in different directions, but I think there's sort of 3 like end points, so you can like spec into a particular subclass.
Yeah, that sounds like it would follow on from like Inquisition and stuff if they did that. So it sounds right.
Yeah. So that at least seemed interesting. Gearing, maybe not so much, but like, I did get a piece of gear that it made it so my fire abilities were much stronger, and it made me think, okay, well, if I was spec'd into like, let's say like a lightning build, and I got this piece of gear, I probably would respec into fire, because this piece of gear is making fire abilities so much stronger. And you can freely take points in and out of your skill tree whenever you want.
That's quite handy.
Yeah. So I think that there is some good depth there. Obviously combat is very skill focused, but it is just such a linear game, and they explained at the event that was to facilitate the story, that they felt like they needed a very like linear, narrow play field so that they could focus on the story they wanted to tell.
It's all well and good, but like, I mean, the story's going to have to really deliver if that's the message they're putting out there. Like, it's going to be doing some heavy lifting.
Right. And like I said, I've seen like a disjointed version of Act 1. So I can talk about a little bit. But this is where I have to like start being careful to avoid spoilers, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing is, what I have seen of the character so far, I liked a lot. Particularly Lucanus, who's a rogue that you meet, who is sort of like possessed by a demon, or like haunted by a demon. And pretty interesting character right out of the gate. You meet him in the middle of a fight, and he's like teleporting around, and he's got big demon wings, and then it's a rescue mission. So you rescue him, and then you start to sort of learn about this demon that's tormenting him, whispering in his ear, trying to make him do bad guy stuff. And it's pretty cool. The way that they approach it, your character, no one can see this demon but Lucanus, and you, the player, not you, the character. Your character cannot. So it has this way, like in these cutscenes with him, where the point of view is shifting. So Lucanus sort of becomes not the player character, but the point of view character. And
that's interesting.
It gives you this sense of a real like ensemble story that all of your companions are very much part of the cast. They're not just followers. I think a lot of RPG games, especially in the past, it'll be like, this is how I feel about Mass Effect. Like, you pick the dudes you like, and they go, where do we go now, boss? And then they just kind of follow you around. And they have their own little stories, and you can like follow those as like side quests, right? If you want to learn more about them. But
yeah, they're lift in, lift out. So like, if you never bothered to meet them, it doesn't impact the story really.
Yeah, they don't matter.
Yeah,
like,
you can kind of like build your party how you want it, but ultimately, there's the storyline is the storyline whether you meet them or not.
Yeah, and like there's for sure value in that. Like, it's good for replayability. It makes it a more personal experience, because like in my story, it was these two that were my homies, and I don't even know, Garrus or whatever. Is it Garrus?
Yeah. I love Garrus. Don't knock Garrus.
But in this, you've got there's 7 companions, and it feels like all of those people are part of this story. The things that they want, the choices that they make, impact the story, and it's an ensemble cast, even though you play a custom player character.
Interesting.
Sometimes you have to party with them for narrative reasons. This person is in your party, choose the other person, and then it can be whoever you want.
That'll be more annoying now that you have fewer at a time, because you always want your favorites with you, and then if one of them's like hard coded in because you have to take that person, and if that person isn't one of your favorites, then you get one slot to pick.
Right. And the thing is, like, and maybe I'm using this as a crutch, but like I always wanted one character to be a healer. So if I'm forced to take someone who's not like, if I'm going on a mission and it's like you're going with Lucanus, right? Then I only have, I think, 3 choices. I think it's Harding, Ballara, and Nev. I'm pretty sure are the other 3 that have a healing ability. So yeah, even though there's 7 people, like if one slot is always for a healer, for me, I know not everyone plays like this. Maybe people are better than me, because you do have flasks. You can heal yourself.
I did always used to have a healer with me as well. It just made it easier.
Yeah. But yeah, that was like a limitation. I kind of had 2 slots. I had like one slot that could only be 3 different characters, and the other slot that could be anyone, that sometimes I had to take a specific person. So,
I think I wouldn't look forward to the bits where you have someone that you don't really care about, but they're locked in, and then maybe you have to take, say, a healer that you also don't really feel strongly about, because then it means you're potentially spending an hour or 2 or longer playing with characters you don't enjoy as much. But part of the fun is like the banter and what they're saying. That's why you pick the ones you like the most to take with you. If that's more restricted, it's gonna suck a bit.
Yeah, I felt a push and pull of like player choice. This is your adventure, the BioWare thing, and we have a big story to tell with a lot of moving pieces. And I'm interested in finding out how well that's balanced, or if there is like sort of a contention there in the full game. I okay. I'm remembering everything we talked about before now. I wanted to highlight some things that bothered me.
Yeah.
Some things that feel a little loosey goosey in this game that are cause for concern. And these are little things, but little things pile up, right?
They do.
So, for instance, the interact button is your jump button on controller.
I genuinely don't know how they got through like Q&A and like playtesting without anyone saying to them, this is going to be really annoying.
Absolute nightmare. Absolute. Anytime you want to pick something up off the ground, talk to another character, and I mean, there's a million. It's an RPG. There's a million things to interact with, and you will just jump over them all the time. Walk up to somebody to talk to them and jump into their face. Walk up to a chest to open it and jump over the chest. It is brutal. I don't know what. Maybe they really just didn't have a better option. There must be another button on the controller that's better. But yes, it's on the jump button, and I hated it. Another thing is like you auto mantle everything, even like tall stuff. Like in like classic Zelda way, where you'll just like, if you're walking forward, he'll just like automatically jump over gaps or climb up a whatever.
Yeah.
So like if you get sort of close to something, you'll just climb up it.
It's just so ridiculous.
Which is really annoying when you're fighting things and all of a sudden you're going up a wall and coming down a wall, and sometimes if you jump off a wall and then kind of turn around, you'll scramble back up it. It's just like, yeah. But and then here's the one that drove me the most insane. So when you carry things, you don't really like pick them up and haul them around, or at least what I've seen so far. So like I had to move these magic switches onto these pedestals to open doors, and when I interacted with the key, which was like this big metal like urn, basically, it would just float behind me. But so that's what carrying is just like an object that follows you. But while that object is following you, you can't jump. So I kind of went off the path and went down a little ledge, and then I'm carrying the thing and I need to get it back and I cannot carry it. I cannot jump. I can't get back over. So what I have to do is set the thing down as close to the edge as possible, climb up, and then inch off the ledge to interact with the thing again so that it'll follow me. Yeah.
It just sounds horrendous.
It's just, there's just a lot of little things that I'm just like, oh, this feels bad sometimes.
But those little things can be overwhelming, like, death by 1,000 cuts or whatever.
Yes.
When you're playing, you don't want to be getting annoyed every 10 seconds because you're trying to jump up a wall, you jumped over the chest you want to open, or, you fell down a ledge and now you have to faff trying to get back up without jumping. It adds up.
Little frustrations. Okay, and then so here's a story thing I have to dance around and be vague about, unfortunately. But there's a point I want to make. So like in Dragon Age fashion, sometimes you have to make important choices, right?
Yes.
And those choices have like physical consequences, like the world changes in a way, right?
Yeah, so like Inquisition, you chose between the mages and the Templars, and whichever one you chose, you would then fight against the other one. I don't remember what it was in Origins. It was like the Mage Circle or something else. I want to say like werewolves, maybe, or I'm just being absolutely wild and making that up. But yeah, there, and it it locks you out of the other thing. It does change the content based on your choice.
Yes. So in Act 1, what I played, there was one of those crossroads style, this is a big decision moments, right?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of things. One, that the way it is presented as like, here is a big choice. Will you go left or will you go right? And left and right are the same thing, but it's like, it's just like do you want this or do you want that? Oh man, I really wish I didn't have to like dance around this so much. My issue with it is that it is just so obviously gamey, and in a way that feels like very dated to me. Like if you do this, these people will be mad at you, but if you do that, these other people will be mad at you. The consequences. And then later on, I'm having a conversation with the character after I make a choice, and a box pops up in the corner of the screen that says, Lucanus is acting this way because you made that choice earlier. He feels like he has to do this now. Like it just explains the entire consequence of my choice to me.
I definitely don't like the sound of that. Like we've said this before. We don't mind the little, everybody disliked that sort of thing. That's funny, but there's like this whole little paragraph, kind of like force feeding you, like, look what you did.
Yes, and again, the choice that you have to make are like two equal things, and it's like something bad happens if you make this choice and something bad happens if you make that choice, but you must pick one, and it's just too constructed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that whole like it telling you the consequences takes away the some of the mystery of the game and the replayability, because if you know exactly, why things went wrong, you're not gonna replay it to find out what happens if you do the other choice.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm dubious of that stuff, but again, I'm not a fan of this. I have not played Dragon Age, and like maybe that's just like one of those give the pigs their slop kind of things, like, which is a mean way to say like fans expect certain things from Dragon Age, and even if a lot about the game changes, like you got to give them what they want, right?
Yeah, I think fans will expect, obviously, like consequence decisions, all that sort of thing. And there is always like a big one that impacts the storyline. But I also like the little ones which aren't so obvious. So in Inquisition, you could affect who became the next divine, and it was like very small things that you had to do, and it wasn't obvious what you were doing, but it did affect the outcome at the ending. And I really love the stuff like that. That's more hidden, and you kind of really have to dig into it if you want to get a specific result. I hope they have more stuff like that, is what I'm saying, which isn't so in your face, obvious, gamey choice.
Yeah. I guess I just feel like we're stuck on, are you going to blow up Megaton or save Megaton? And I just feel like we're still doing that.
Yeah.
After all these years, it's just that. It's just, do you blow up Megaton or not? Again and again and again. And I just wish choice was more nuanced than this like A B like crossroads kind of thing. Okay, a couple more things. One thing that I liked a lot was how much uh, the game considers who your character is, how much that actually has an impact on the way people treat you, the relationships you have, the story beats. I know this isn't anything new for Dragon Age or these kinds of RPGs, but it's done in a clever way that it gave me that feeling like, whoa, I don't know how this would have played out if I wasn't, a dwarf, or if I wasn't like for example, like Lucanus is a one of the House of Crows. It's one of the factions in the game. And you can choose for your character, if you're a rogue, I think, you can choose for your character to also be House of Crows. And when you go to his town, they're like, "Oh, brother," and they treat you like you're one of them, like their customs, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I don't know what those relationships would be like, or how those scenes would play out if I wasn't House of Crows, and I think that's really interesting. Or another little example is like, um, after interrupting Solus's thing, there's a sequence where you are in the Veil with Solus, and he's explaining, well, now it's your problem. You're going to have to take out the elf gods. And when you go to the lighthouse, which is sort of like the hub where all your companions hang out, somebody is like questioning you, like, "Oh, that could have just been a dream. You know, why would Solus talk to you?" And Harding is like, "No, wait a second, dwarves don't dream.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been a dream." And because my character was a dwarf. But if my character wasn't a dwarf, how would that have played out? And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I
think
like stuff like that.
Yeah, I like stuff like that a lot. The other thing I wanted to touch on, because I remembered all the headlines about how all of the characters, all of the companions are pansexual, and then
Oh
when I
yeah.
was, and then when I was at the event listening to the director talk about it, she said that the characters are not player sexual. She said, I want to be clear that the game is not player sexual. The characters don't adapt their personalities to conform to your character." And I did not know what the difference was.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, they said everybody's pansexual. And so I had to go up and ask her, and I think other people aren't going to get this either, because it's an important distinction, but like in practice it might not feel like it's any different.
I didn't
So
get it when you first said it to me, so I fully agree.
yeah,
It needs an explanation.
yeah. So basically, there's different approaches to how the companion characters will, whether they'll have a relationship with you or not in an RPG. And there's different approaches to that. And so in a game like Cyberpunk, which is a mess, the characters are either, you know, straight or gay or bi, and they will only have a relationship with you if your character matches their gender preference.
Yeah.
Or not even gender preference, because like Cyberpunk's really messy about connecting your genitals to your gender.
Oh
So
yeah. Bad
anyway,
example.
but in a game where the characters are player sexual, become they will just change their sexual preference to match what your character is. So if your character is a woman and you romance a woman, then the companion that you're romancing becomes lesbian.
Yeah.
But if your character was a man and you romanced her, it would let you, but then that character would be straight. So that's the distinction. In the Veilguard, all the characters are pansexual. So they're not changing their preference to match what your character is. And I think in practice that doesn't matter, but to them it's about avoiding erasure, basically.
Yeah. I get
And
it, but
there's pros and cons, I think, right?
yeah. Like part of the whole, like, so when I played Inquisition, I tried to romance Dorian because he was amazing, and my character was a woman. So after a while of him flirting, he did tell me he was gay, and that was a no-go. And that was like an experience in itself to learn that about his character and things like that. I don't know. I almost feel like it's too easy, and it takes something away from the characters if they're just all available.
I know that they wanted to avoid the situation where you really want to romance a character and they are not interested in you,
There's
and then
mods for that.
right, and you feel like you have to restart the game or you have to change who your character is, and they wanted people to be able to romance whoever they want. I get that, but also I think like, and there's no perfect solution to this, but just saying, oh, everybody in the world of Dragon Age is pansexual, yeah, your sexuality is part of your identity, you know, not for
Yeah.
everyone, but making everybody just be like, oh yeah, whatever's cool with me, it flattens them a bit, I think.
I
I
also
don't know.
agree. You're right though. There's no perfect solution. Whatever they did, there would be people that were unhappy, and there will be people unhappy, and there will be mods to change that. You know.
So I just, because that was confusing to me, so I just wanted to explain that. But yeah, I guess takeaway after 6-ish hours, not what I expected. I did have fun. I am apprehensive about some things. I, like you, think that the story needs to carry this
Yeah.
for me to stay invested. Um, And I'm been thinking a lot about Final Fantasy 16 because that game is so different than the Final Fantasy before it, because it's such a action focused game that really isn't an RPG at all. Like God of War is more of an RPG than Final Fantasy 16 was,
Yeah,
in my
you're not wrong.
opinion. And that was a very story driven game, and the story did not pull me through it. I did not finish 16 because I just couldn't get invested enough in the characters and the story.
That's because they killed off the best character.
It's
That's
true.
why.
It's true. So this will need to do that, and what I saw was way too disjointed to say one way or the other. But I am interested in the characters. I like Lucanus a lot. I like Nev a lot. I don't love Ballara. Harding annoys me. Sorry.
I can't believe Harding annoys you. She's got this whole fan following, so you're gonna get hate.
Maybe yeah. Maybe I gotta play. Is she in all of them?
No, she was in Inquisition, and she was
Okay.
like a pseudo romance, so she wasn't an official one.
Gotcha.
But you could kind of put her with your Inquisitor. It was
Okay.
again one of those sort of like secret things that you could do it if you knew what you were doing.
Gotcha. Well, so Emmerich, Davrin, and Tosh were all there, so you do get the whole party together in Act 1, but I didn't see those three, I didn't see their intro or really get to know them much at all. I would really like to see more of Davrin. He's the guy who has the griffin pet. I think it's a griffin.
Oh, yeah.
He's the monster hunter, and he does cool stuff with the griffin. So I would like to see more of him, but I'm definitely interested in the characters. I don't know where the story's going or what makes it interesting. So that definitely remains to be seen. But that's my big takeaway. How does that make you feel? What I've just told you as a Dragon Age nut.
It's difficult because my expectations weren't really high because it's been a mess over the years. The development has been a mess. They've now given it a worse name than it had before. Dreadful was way cooler. So I kind of set the bar low for myself, and I've just kept telling myself, as long as the story's good, I'll be happy. To some degree, I just want more of the story. I suppose really it's more for me. It's more about like whether it can go above what I've set as an expectation and really impress me. And if it doesn't, it'll just be like, oh, here's the next chapter of Dragon Age, and I'm glad for that. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe not Game of the Year material.
I don't think Game of the Year material. I would never give something a score that I played 6 hours of. But I don't think this is a 10 out of 10 game. Doesn't mean it won't be great, or it doesn't mean that Dragon Age fans won't be psyched about it. But yeah, already can see some flaws.
Yeah.
Okay, that's about all I'm allowed to say about Dragon Age: Veilguard right now. I wish I could say more, and I probably will be able to closer to launch. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. We have a full written preview on TheGamer, link down in the description. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, and visit us at TheGamer. That's TheGamer, no spaces.